November 16, 1532. Francisco Pizarro and 168 Spanish conquistadors march into the Inca city of Cajamarca, deep in the Peruvian highlands. They're outnumbered 400 to 1 by an empire of 12 million people. But they have steel swords, armor, horses, and 13 primitive firearms. The Inca have bronze weapons, cloth armor, and no experience with gunpowder. Within hours, Pizarro will capture the Inca Emperor Atahualpa, slaughter thousands of unarmed Inca, and begin the conquest that will destroy the largest empire in the Americas. In our world, European technology crushed the New World. But what if the Inca had guns? What if that technological advantage didn't exist? What if November 16, 1532 became the day the conquistadors learned they weren't invincible? To understand how different this could have been, you need to understand what the Spanish destroyed. The Inca Empire in 1532 was the largest pre-Columbian civilization in the Americas. Tawantinsuyu, land of the Four Quarters, stretched 2,500 miles along the western coast of South America, from modern Ecuador through Peru, Bolivia, and into Chile and Argentina. 12 million people. A road network of 25,000 miles connecting mountain peaks to coastal valleys. Cities built on mountaintops with stone blocks so precisely fitted you couldn't slide a knife blade between them. A sophisticated bureaucracy tracking resources with knotted strings called quipu. An agricultural system feeding millions through terraced farming and innovative irrigation. And an army. The Inca weren't peaceful. They'd built this empire through conquest, absorbing dozens of cultures and kingdoms over a century of expansion. Their military could field armies of tens of thousands, moving them along roads that rivaled anything Rome had built. They used stone clubs, bronze axes, slings that could crack skulls at 100 yards, and quilted armor that was surprisingly effective against most weapons. But they'd never encountered steel. They'd never seen a horse. They'd never heard a gunshot. And they had no immunity to European diseases. When Pizarro landed on the Peruvian coast in 1532, he was leading the third Spanish expedition to the region. The first two had failed. But Pizarro had advantages beyond technology. The Inca Empire was in civil war. Two brothers, Atahualpa and Huáscar, were fighting for the throne after smallpox, brought by earlier Spanish expeditions and spreading ahead of actual contact, had killed their father. Atahualpa had just won, but the empire was fractured and exhausted. Pizarro exploited this brilliantly. At Cajamarca, he invited Atahualpa to meet under truce. 7,000 Inca arrived, most unarmed for the ceremonial meeting. The Spanish were hidden in buildings surrounding the square. At a signal, they attacked. Cavalry charged. Cannons fired into packed crowds. Steel swords cut through cloth armor like paper. The Inca, trapped and unarmed, panicked. In less than 2 hours, Pizarro's 168 men killed between 2,000 and 10,000 Inca and captured their emperor without losing a single Spaniard. It was one of the most lopsided military victories in history. And it broke the Inca Empire's spine. But what if it hadn't gone that way? What if the Inca had possessed the same weapons as the Spanish? Here's our point of divergence. In the 1420s, a century before Pizarro, Chinese Admiral Zheng He led massive treasure fleets across the Indian Ocean on voyages of exploration and trade. In our timeline, these fleets turned back before reaching the Americas. But what if one expedition continued east? What if Chinese vessels, blown off course or seeking new trade routes, reached the western coast of South America in the 1430s? The Chinese had gunpowder weapons, fire lances, primitive guns, and explosive bombs. They had advanced metallurgy. And they had a tradition of sharing technology with trading partners. In this timeline, Chinese traders make contact with coastal kingdoms that would soon be conquered by the Inca Empire. They establish a small trading post, nothing permanent, just seasonal visits for a few decades. They trade Chinese silk and porcelain for South American gold and silver. And crucially, they trade knowledge. They show local smiths how to make better bronze and early iron. They demonstrate gunpowder weapons. They leave behind a few examples and basic instructions before their visits eventually cease. Perhaps the Ming dynasty's isolationist turn in the 1430s ends the voyages, just as it did in our timeline. By the 1440s, when the Inca Empire begins its rapid expansion under Emperor Pachacuti, Inca smiths have spent years experimenting with the foreign technology. They've figured out gunpowder, they have the ingredients, sulfur from volcanic regions, charcoal from abundant forests, and they eventually discover saltpeter deposits in their vast territory. They've developed crude firearms, nothing sophisticated, but functional hand cannons and small bombards. And most importantly, they've integrated these weapons into their military doctrine over decades of civil wars and conquests as the empire expands. By 1532, when Pizarro lands, the Inca have had nearly a century to refine gunpowder weapons. They're still not equal to European firearms, metallurgy matters, and Inca bronze and early iron isn't as good as Spanish steel. But they're close enough. The Inca possess matchlock-style weapons, small cannons, and most crucially, they understand what guns are and how to use them. The psychological shock weapon that made Spanish conquests possible, the terror of the unknown, doesn't exist. When Pizarro marches on Cajamarca, Atahualpa knows exactly what those weapons can do. Because his army has them too. November 16, 1532. Pizarro's plan is the same as in our timeline. Invite Atahualpa to meet, hide soldiers in buildings around the plaza, attack when he arrives, use shock and firepower to overwhelm the Inca before they can react. He expects the same result as other conquistadors achieved elsewhere, natives terrified by horses and guns, unable to mount effective resistance. But this time, something's different. When Atahualpa's procession enters Cajamarca, the Inca aren't unarmed ceremonial attendants. Mixed among them are warriors carrying matchlocks and fire lances. And positioned on the heights overlooking the city are Inca crews with small bombards aimed at the plaza. Atahualpa has suspected a trap from the beginning. Spanish behavior at the coast, reports from scouts, and his advisors' warnings all suggested treachery. So he's prepared. When the Spanish priest Valverde approaches with his Bible demanding the Incas submit to Christianity and Spanish rule, Atahualpa goes through the same motions as in our timeline. He examines the book, tosses it aside, and challenges the Spanish claims. But this time, when Pizarro gives the signal to attack, the Inca are ready. Spanish cavalry charges from the buildings. Spanish musketeers fire into the crowd. But this time, the Inca fire back. Inca matchlocks crack in response to Spanish harquebuses. The sound isn't terrifying to soldiers who've heard it before. Inca gunners on the heights fire their bombards into the buildings where Spanish soldiers are positioned, collapsing walls and sowing confusion. And crucially, Inca warriors know not to panic at cavalry. They've trained for this. They form dense pike formations. They don't have steel, but hardwood pikes work well enough. They use their superior numbers to surround Spanish cavalry, pulling riders from horses, targeting the vulnerable animals rather than the armored men. The battle still favors the Spanish initially. Their steel armor is better, their weapons are slightly more effective, their cavalry is devastating when it can maneuver. But they can't achieve the overwhelming psychological victory they need. The Inca don't break and run. They fight back with weapons the Spanish recognize, using tactics that make sense. And the numbers begin to matter. 168 Spaniards versus 7,000 Inca who aren't panicking and running but instead surrounding, flanking, pressing from all sides. Pizarro realizes the trap has backfired. He's not capturing an emperor, he's caught in a killing box with his entire force about to be annihilated. He tries to fight his way to Atahualpa, hoping to still seize the emperor and force a stalemate. But Inca bodyguards surround their ruler, and Inca firearms pour fire into the Spanish formation. By late afternoon, it's over. Most Spanish are dead. Pizarro himself is captured wounded. A handful of Spaniards escape and flee back to the coast, where Spanish ships still wait. But the main invasion force is destroyed. And Atahualpa has in his possession dozens of Spanish weapons, armor, and most importantly, prisoners who can be interrogated about Spanish tactics, technology, and intentions. The news spreads like fire through the Andes. The foreign invaders with their strange animals and metal skin can be defeated. Their weapons aren't magic. Their tactics can be countered. And the Inca Empire, recently reunified after civil war, now has a clear external enemy to unite against. Atahualpa takes Pizarro's armor and weapons as trophies. He interrogates the prisoners extensively, learning everything he can about Spanish technology, tactics, and most importantly, about the massive European presence in the Caribbean and Central America. He learns about the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs just 12 years earlier in 1520. He learns that more Spanish will come. And he begins preparing for a war that will determine whether the Americas remain independent or become European colonies. Atahualpa isn't naive about the threat. The Spanish prisoners tell him, under persuasion, about the scale of European power. Massive kingdoms with millions of people. Cities larger than Cusco. Fleets of hundreds of ships. Armies equipped entirely with steel and firearms. The Spanish Empire stretches across half of Europe. They've conquered the Caribbean and large parts of Central America. More will come to avenge Pizarro. It's only a matter of time. So Atahualpa does something unprecedented in Inca history. He opens the empire to rapid technological change. Traditionally conservative, bound by tradition and ritual, the Inca state now prioritizes military innovation above all else. Inca smiths take apart every piece of Spanish equipment captured at Cajamarca. They study Spanish steel, far superior to anything the Inca had produced. They examine Spanish firearms in minute detail. They measure calibers, analyze metallurgy, test different alloys. Spanish prisoners who were soldiers or craftsmen are offered their lives in exchange for teaching their skills. Some refuse and are executed. Others, seeing no rescue coming, cooperate. Over the next 5 years, from 1532 to 1537, the Inca Empire undergoes a crash industrialization program focused entirely on military technology. They improve their gunpowder significantly by increasing saltpeter purity. They develop better casting techniques for cannon, creating bombards that rival Spanish versions. They can't match Spanish steel quality, that requires techniques and materials they don't yet have, but they improve their bronze and develop workable iron. More importantly, they manufacture weapons in quantity. The Inca state system, designed to mobilize resources across a vast empire, now focuses on weapons production. Workshops in Cusco, Quito, and other major cities produce matchlocks by the hundreds. They're not as good as Spanish weapons, but they're good enough. And the Inca have something the Spanish don't, numbers. By 1537, the Inca military has been transformed. Traditional weapons remain, slings, clubs, spears, but now supplemented by firearms. Every Inca army includes gunner units. Every fortress has cannon. Tactics have evolved to combine traditional Inca strengths, mobility, logistics, numerical superiority, with gunpowder firepower. And the empire has expanded its intelligence network to the coast, watching for the Spanish return everyone knows is coming. They don't have to wait long. In 1537, a second Spanish expedition arrives, larger than Pizarro's, better funded, carrying word that the Spanish crown wants vengeance for Cajamarca and won't accept an independent Inca state. This time the Spanish know the Inca have firearms. This time they're prepared for real war, not a quick conquest. They land with 500 soldiers, not 168. They bring more cannon. They establish a fortified beachhead and prepare for a campaign of systematic conquest like they'd conducted in Mexico. But this time, they're facing an enemy that's had 5 years to prepare and an enemy that understands exactly what's coming. The war that follows isn't the one-sided slaughter of our timeline. It's a grinding, brutal conflict between roughly equal military forces. The Spanish have better individual equipment and battlefield experience. The Inca have overwhelming numerical advantage, knowledge of terrain, and a massive logistical network. Battles are indecisive. The Spanish win tactical victories through superior armor and cavalry but can't exploit them because Inca forces withdraw, regroup, and attack again. The Inca can't break Spanish fortifications but bleed them through attrition, cutting supply lines, harassing foraging parties, and wearing them down. By 1540, the second Spanish expedition has failed. They hold a few coastal fortresses but can't advance inland. Disease works both ways now. Europeans still bring devastating plagues, but operating in the Andes at high altitude where Europeans aren't acclimated gives the Inca advantage. And Spain has other priorities. Wars in Europe, conflicts with the Ottoman Empire, competition with other European powers for colonial territory. The Inca Empire isn't an easy target anymore. It's a costly, grinding conflict with no clear end. Spain doesn't abandon interest in Peru. There's too much silver and gold, but they accept a de facto stalemate. Spanish fortresses on the coast. Inca control of the interior. With the immediate Spanish threat contained, Atahualpa turns his attention to expansion and development. The encounter with Europeans has revealed that the Inca aren't the center of the world. They're one empire among many, and most of those empires have better technology. This realization drives transformation. From 1540 to 1570, the Inca Empire undergoes changes that would have been unthinkable before European contact. The rigid hierarchy loosens slightly to allow merit-based advancement in military and technical fields. Skilled craftsmen gain status previously reserved for nobility. Foreign knowledge is actively sought rather than rejected. Through Portuguese traders in Brazil, Portugal has its own colonies and is sometimes at odds with Spain. The Inca acquire books, tools, and technical knowledge. They learn about European shipbuilding and begin constructing their own ocean-going vessels, combining Inca engineering with European designs. By 1560, Inca ships are trading directly with Portuguese Brazil and even reaching Portuguese outposts in Africa. The silver and gold that in our timeline flowed to Spain now finances Inca development. They purchase European weapons and tools. They hire European craftsmen willing to work for generous pay in a wealthy, stable empire. They send students to Portuguese territories to learn European techniques. The empire expands aggressively into territories the Spanish haven't claimed. Inca forces push into what's now Colombia, absorbing the Muisca Confederation. They expand into the Amazon basin, establishing fortified settlements along major rivers. They push south into Chile beyond their historical borders, reaching the Strait of Magellan. They're not just defending, they're creating a buffer zone of Inca-controlled territory so large that Spanish penetration would require massive, sustained effort. By 1570, the Inca Empire covers more territory than at any point in our timeline's history, and its population is recovering from the plagues that devastated it in the 1530s and 1540s. But this isn't a simple story of triumph. The technological and social changes strain Inca society. Traditional religious authority conflicts with pragmatic military needs. Conquered peoples on the empire's edges rebel, seeing opportunity in the chaos of transformation. The introduction of European diseases still kills millions. Firearms don't stop smallpox or measles. The empire that emerges by 1570 is richer, larger, and more powerful than in our timeline, but it's also more militarized, more centralized, and more willing to abandon tradition for survival. It's becoming something new, a hybrid civilization combining Inca organizational genius with European military technology and global trade connections. And other European powers are taking notice. England and France, watching Spain's failure to conquer Peru, are reassessing their own strategies in the Americas. The English in North America and the French in Canada now know they'll face indigenous peoples who might have access to firearms. Pirates and privateers in the Caribbean begin trading with the Inca, seeing opportunity in a wealthy empire hostile to Spain. Dutch traders, always entrepreneurial, establish trading relationships, exchanging advanced weapons for South American silver. The Inca Empire isn't isolated anymore. It's a player in global politics. By 1600, the geopolitical situation in the Americas is completely different from our timeline. In the north, European colonies are smaller and more cautious, aware that indigenous peoples might be armed. In the south, the Inca Empire stands as a regional power, controlling the western coast of South America, trading globally, and maintaining military parity with European technology. Spanish colonies exist in Central America and the Caribbean, but the Spanish dream of a continental American empire has failed. And the Inca know this success is fragile. Every generation, European weapons improve. Matchlocks give way to flintlocks, then rifles. Cannon become more powerful. European military tactics evolve. The Inca must continually adapt or fall behind. Let's accelerate through centuries. By 1700, the Inca Empire has survived for 168 years of continuous contact with Europeans, constantly adapting, constantly modernizing. They've adopted European-style muskets, though manufactured with their own techniques. They've developed their own variations on European artillery. They've learned navigation and operate a merchant fleet trading across the Pacific and Atlantic. They've even established a small trading post in the Philippines, reversing the colonial dynamic by having an Inca presence in Asia. But survival has come at a cost. The empire is no longer recognizably Inca in the traditional sense. Spanish is spoken as a trade language alongside Quechua. Christianity has spread, syncretizing with traditional Inca religion in complex ways. The sun god Inti is sometimes identified with Christ, creating hybrid theology. European diseases have reduced the population by perhaps 50% from pre-contact levels, though not the 90% die-off of our timeline. The rigid Aini reciprocity system has been modified to accommodate market economics and wage labor. The empire is more decentralized, with regional governors wielding power that would have been unthinkable in 1532. By 1800, the Industrial Revolution is beginning in Europe. The Inca Empire faces a new challenge: can they industrialize? They have resources, abundant silver, copper, and other minerals. They have technical knowledge from continuous European contact. They have a large, literate population trained in administration and craftsmanship. But they lack the coal deposits that powered European industrialization. They lack the dense network of competing states that drove European innovation through military competition. And they're facing European empires, British, French, Spanish, that are now far more powerful than the Spain that Atahualpa defeated in 1532. The 19th century becomes the most dangerous period for Inca independence. British and French warships patrol global trade routes. European weapons have improved dramatically: rifled muskets, breech-loading cannon, steam-powered ships. The technological gap that nearly closed in the 1500s is widening again. The Inca Empire survives through a combination of geography, diplomacy, and strategic adaptation. The Andes remain difficult to conquer. Inca diplomacy plays European powers against each other. British interest in opening markets balances Spanish revanchist dreams. French commercial ties create diplomatic protection. And the Inca modernize frantically, importing European machinery, sending thousands of students to European universities, hiring European engineers and military advisors. By 1900, South America in this timeline looks radically different from ours. The Inca Empire, now officially calling itself the Tawantinsuyo Republic or Union in most international contexts, controls roughly the territory of modern Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and parts of Colombia and Chile. It's not a traditional empire anymore. Reforms in the 1800s created a constitutional system with an elected assembly. Though the Sapa Inca's descended line retains ceremonial and limited executive power. Spanish, Portuguese, British, and French colonies still exist along the coasts and in less defensible territories, but they're smaller than in our timeline. Argentina and Brazil develop more or less as they did historically, though with different borders. The Inca state in 1900 is industrializing rapidly, though behind European and North American levels. Lima and Cusco are cities of hundreds of thousands with universities, factories, and modern infrastructure. Railroads cross the Andes. Telegraph lines connect major cities. The government has adopted a mixed economy, traditional community land management in rural areas, capitalist markets in cities. Quechua and Spanish are both official languages. The population is ethnically diverse, primarily indigenous, but with significant populations of mixed Inca-European descent and immigrant communities from around the world drawn by economic opportunities. And crucially, the existence of a large, independent indigenous state in South America has altered global racial dynamics. The scientific racism that justified European colonialism in our timeline exists here too, but it's harder to maintain when the Toantinsuyo Republic is sending diplomats to international conferences, when Inca engineers are building projects across South America, when Quechua is spoken in international trade negotiations. Indigenous peoples globally can point to the Inca state as proof that European dominance isn't inevitable. This doesn't prevent colonialism elsewhere. Africa, Asia, the Pacific still suffer European conquest, but it changes the narrative. By 2025, in this alternate timeline, the Toantinsuyo Republic is a regional power with a population of approximately 120 million. Its territory includes Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and parts of Colombia and Chile, roughly 2.5 million square kilometers, making it the fourth largest country in the Americas after Canada, the United States, and Brazil. Its economy is developed, based on mining, manufacturing, agriculture, and increasingly technology and services. GDP per capita is roughly equivalent to modern Chile or Argentina, upper middle income, with significant inequality but a growing middle class. The political system is a federal republic with strong indigenous rights protections. Quechua is an official language alongside Spanish, and both are taught in schools. Traditional Inca cultural practices are protected and celebrated, integrated into modern national identity rather than relegated to museums. The government maintains elements of Inca administrative tradition, regional governors have significant autonomy, community land management exists alongside private property, and there's strong emphasis on state planning and infrastructure investment. Some call it Inca socialism, though it's pragmatically mixed market and planned economy. Culturally, the impact is profound. Quechua is spoken by 80 million people as a first language and another 60 million as a second language, making it one of the world's major languages. Quechua literature, music, and film are part of global culture. Inca-descended architecture, the distinctive fitted stonework combined with modern materials, is a recognized aesthetic worldwide. And the persistence of indigenous civilization at scale has fundamentally altered conversations about race, colonialism, and development. It's harder to claim indigenous peoples couldn't build modern civilizations when the Toantinsuyo Republic has nuclear power plants and launches satellites. Geopolitically, the Toantinsuyo Republic is a non-aligned nation similar to India in our timeline. It has tense but functional relations with the United States, good trade relations with China and Europe, and leads a bloc of indigenous rights-focused nations in international forums. It's not a superpower, its economy is a fraction of the US or China's, but it has regional influence and symbolic importance as the world's largest indigenous-governed state. It's a member of the UN Security Council as a permanent member representing South America, a position it gained after World War II as a neutral power that supplied resources to the Allies. But this isn't a utopia. The country faces massive challenges. Inequality is high, urban elites, many of mixed or European descent, control much of the economy, while rural indigenous communities remain poor. Drug trafficking, particularly cocaine from the Amazon regions, is a major issue. Environmental destruction from mining and deforestation threatens ecosystems. Political corruption plagues the bureaucracy. Regional independence movements, particularly in southern territories, challenge national unity. And the persistent question, has modernization destroyed the Inca identity it claimed to preserve? Are contemporary Quechua-speaking citizens living in Andean cities and working in tech companies really Inca in any meaningful sense? Or is this just another modern nation-state wearing traditional clothing? The global implications are staggering. In this timeline, the narrative of inevitable European dominance doesn't exist the same way. The Americas weren't empty lands waiting for civilization, they had civilizations that adapted and survived. This has altered indigenous peoples' trajectories worldwide. In North America, treaties with indigenous nations were taken more seriously when the Toantinsuyo Republic could serve as diplomatic and economic ally to indigenous rights movements. African decolonization happened earlier and with more confidence, inspired by the example of indigenous self-governance. Asian nations resisting European colonialism could point to South America as proof that resistance was possible. And it changes how we think about technology and development. In our timeline, European technology seemed inseparable from European culture. Modernization meant westernization. In this timeline, the Toantinsuyo Republic demonstrates that societies can adopt technology while maintaining distinct cultural identities. You can have smartphones and the internet while speaking Quechua and organizing society around principles derived from Inca tradition. The path to modernity isn't singular. This has implications for every developing nation, every indigenous community, every culture facing the question of how to modernize without losing itself. In our world, Machu Picchu stands empty, a tourist site and reminder of a destroyed civilization. In this world, it's still a functioning city, blending ancient stonework with modern infrastructure, home to 50,000 people who speak the language of their ancestors while working in industries their ancestors couldn't have imagined. One point of divergence: Chinese traders sharing gunpowder technology in the 1430s, created a cascade of changes. The Inca Empire surviving contact with Europeans. Indigenous Americans retaining political control of significant territory. A major modern nation-state governed by and culturally rooted in indigenous tradition. But here's the uncomfortable question: is this timeline better? Millions who died from disease and conquest in our timeline lived full lives here. Indigenous cultures flourished rather than being nearly exterminated. The historical trauma of colonialism was lessened, not eliminated but not as total. Yet millions still died from disease even in this timeline. Firearms don't stop epidemics. The Inca Empire became militarized, centralized, and adopted many Spanish cultural elements to survive. Traditional Inca society was transformed beyond recognition. And much of the world outside South America developed similarly to our timeline. Europe still industrialized, colonialism still devastated Africa and Asia, world wars still happened. Perhaps the real lesson is this: technology matters, but it's not destiny. The Inca didn't lose at Cajamarca because they were inferior, they lost because they didn't have guns and the Spanish did. Give them guns, and suddenly history could have gone very differently. This applies to every colonial encounter, every conquest, every moment in history when technological advantage determined outcomes. The winners weren't inherently better, smarter, or more deserving. They just had better weapons. And that should make us reconsider every assumption about historical inevitability, cultural superiority, and the march of progress. So what do you think? Could gunpowder in indigenous hands have prevented European conquest of the Americas? Would a modern indigenous-governed state fundamentally change global politics and culture? Or are the forces of geography, disease, and economic development too powerful for any technology to overcome? Drop your thoughts below. And if you enjoyed this alternate history, subscribe for more. Because history is full of these moments where small changes, a different trade route, a piece of shared technology, a battle that goes differently, could have redirected everything. The world we have isn't the only world we could have had. It's just the one that happened.